Thank you to Meta for sponsoring this video. You all know that my channel, for the most part, consists of VR content which ranges from individual games to larger problems with it to basically anything related to VR. One thing I've always wanted to talk about for a while but never really got around to because there was always more important stuff for me to cover was Meta's own subscription service, MetaQuest Plus. Luckily, with the power of money, Meta gave me a pretty good incentive to actually cover it. The best part is that they didn't bribe me to talk about it good, so I can actually cover negatives of the service instead of glazing over all the good parts. And I do actually have negatives though, so I don't want you to automatically mark this video off as paid sponsored slop, because this is just about as genuine of a review as you would get, paid or not. So sit down and listen. And if by the end you decide you want to buy it, you can go to the link in the description to buy MetaQuest Plus and directly support me. MetaQuest Plus is Meta's game subscription service, having released earlier well, it's 2025 now, so last year in February 2024. Now let's quickly go over the little summary of what this is so we get the baseline info out of the way. Quest Plus gives you a selection of Quest games as long as you're subscribed to the service. Every month, 2 games will get added to the catalog of the service, which expire at the end of the month and deem unredeemable if you don't claim them within that month. I'll touch on that later. Quest Plus costs $8 a month, with the annual subscription costing $60. Now that you get the gist of it, let's go into more detail. Quest Plus, right off the bat, has a pretty good library of games. You've got heavy hitters like I Expect You to Die 2, Until You Fall, Asgard's Wrath 2, Espire 1, and more. It's a pretty good list. I'm going to touch on the negatives in a second and what can improve it, but let's see how much this subscription service is as of right now. No potential talk. I'm talking strictly what is at the moment. At the moment, the game selection is pretty good, period. You have games like I mentioned previously that can give you tons of hours of fun on top of the handful of others I didn't mention. Regardless of which plan you choose to get, monthly subscription or annual subscription, I feel like both are really great prices no matter how you cut it. $8 a month for over a dozen games of mostly high quality is just great regardless of anything else, and $60 a year is a very easy pill to swallow in my opinion for the annual subscription, especially knowing within that year you'll end up with about 20 more games. Now for the negatives, or well, half negatives, you'll see what I mean. So I mentioned before that each month 2 new games get added, with the catch being that they expire after that month. You must claim them within the month they're added, and then you keep them as long as you're subscribed to the service. However, if you choose to unsubscribe for a month or 2, you'll end up missing out on the games that were added during that time, and whether they come back or not is a gamble. This is something similar to a lot of subscription services. They usually have this sort of catch to them that keeps you subscribed to the service. It's a way for you to think more about buying the annual subscription. If there's a game that catches your eye one month, then a one-time purchase of $8 is fine. I can live with that, but then more games catch your eye and you just end up paying about over $60 anyway if you keep buying monthly. So why not just get the annual subscription at that point? On paper, this would be scummy. It's a common business practice that's urging you to get the annual subscription. However, I think it is genuinely impossible to label it as that because of the price. $60 a year is really good, and on top of the base catalog of games, because you'll be getting an extra 2 games a month, the catalog is going to be nearly double for you. You'll get your money's worth out of the subscription. I think that's pretty much a given. Plus, if you're curious about it, they do offer a trial, and I think that more than gives you a taste of the service, letting you know if you want to get it or not. Now, something else you should know about is that Quest Plus has the dreaded rotating catalog. There's no way to sugarcoat this. I'm not a fan of this in any scenario. I get why they do it, it keeps things fresh, but it does make me picture the person whose favorite game was on the service and it gets removed with them not having the money to get the full game. Now, the upside to this is that, realistically, VR games aren't usually very expensive, but this is a negative regardless. The good thing is that most games remain. There are very little changes, meaning most of the games you really care about aren't super likely to get rotated out. Let me do something fun real quick. What would I do to improve the service? Really, it's not much actually, but there is 1 or 2 main things. First, I think the price in the base catalog is perfectly fine. They have a great balance of quality and quantity, and the price is more than worth it in my opinion. However, ditch the rotating catalog. I think the best way to do it, which would make everyone happy, is to do this. Keep the 2 games per month that expire at the end of the month. I get its inclusion from a business perspective, and the annual subscription is worth it regardless. You can keep them. What I say should be changed is that alongside the 2 games a month, I think 1 game should be added to the base catalog per month. As is, while the quality and quantity of games in the base service is great, I think we could go for a few more games, and having the amount of games go up by just 1 a month will add up and be a great incentive to not only keep subscribing, but a great way to keep interest in the base catalog of games. Also, I think it could be marketed better. They could have made an insanely huge push for the subscription service by putting the new Batman or Skydance's Behemoth or Metro on the service day one. This could have been such a good move on Meta, and I bet that would have made the service skyrocket in sales. Well, relatively, of course. I do think that's what the service is missing. The one huge game. Having one of those 3 games on the service would really put some eyes on the service. And while they always could add them later, I think not doing it at launch will mitigate some of the success if they choose to do it later. This subscription is already great, but I can't help but think of the potential it has if they change just a few small things. In conclusion, strictly as is, it's a good service. It has negatives, sure, but every subscription service does, and comparatively, I think the negatives here are largely inoffensive. I recommend it. However, I do urge you to do a trial first. All opinions of the service mainly comes towards the games themselves, and whether you like the games or not is totally subjective, meaning that some people just won't like this service because they don't like the games. So, get a free trial. You can use the link in the description to buy MetaQuest Plus and directly support me in the process. So, if you're ready to take the plunge, that support would help me a lot. Thank you to Meta for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you later. Peace.